Oh no, I can't because I had a major expense, to quote our pre-call, What did we say? Trailer trash with an attitude, So that's me.
Well, hold up. If you don't qualify that, your expense was trailer trash with an attitude. What have you been getting up to, Roland?
No, that will be the secret I will take into my grave.
Oh, God.
Welcome to the What's Your Baseline podcast, where we demystify enterprise architecture and business process management.
We're here to bring best practices and lessons learned from our years to your ears, as well as interviewing friends we met along the way on our professional journeys.
My name is Roland Volt, and I'm joined today by my co-host, JM Erlinson.
Hey, JM, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Roland. It's been a pretty exciting week for me, I got to be honest with you. I got a chance to appear on a panel show this week, something I don't often get a chance to do. Yeah, some interesting insights about BI with AI. Essentially, how are we changing the way that people are able to see data with AI as sort of a companion or as an adjunct to that? And how can you make business operations more seamless with AI so that your BI gives you the right information or good outcomes from the work you do? It was fascinating. I would say that as a whole, I see a lot of people still thinking that AI may be magic. They see that as like, oh, it just put the data in and from it comes insights, from it comes solutions to your problems. And I think we've talked about it on the show before that magical thinking may be literally the opposite of what we need right now for AI to be successful.
No. Don't talk about the problem. Just give me an app for this. I don't want to get my hands dirty. Just give me an app for this.
It feels a little bit like, what do you say?
Magic.
A heavily invested organization. No, the people feel like they're very fanatical about the technology in general. I mean, that panel show was with some really reasonable folks, but when I talk to other people on the internet, their defenses seem like they're very set in their ways and their opinions, and that is that AI is our savior.
And as we all know,
tough.
People on the internet are never wrong. They always tell the truth. So I'm glad that you asked your trusted advisory board. But hey,
yeah,
I see. I live a simple life. I don't have this pleasure of speaking to other people. That's why I need to record with you. But on the other hand, I fulfilled one of my bucket list items. Last weekend.
Did you tell our audience about that?
I bought an Airstream trailer, and now
Yay!
I have a very good. Yeah, I'm very happy. I don't have it yet. It takes a couple of weeks until I get it, but at least I signed the papers and sold my soul. But hey, the good news is I can go camping. And you know what? This is the first episode where I get a really good transition to introducing our guest, because today we have Breanne Casteel on the show. And guess what? She works for Campgrounds of America, even though it's misspelled, but that's a different story. Hey, welcome, Breanne.
It's misspelled. Thank you. I was not in the marketing department when they created it, so that is not on me.
But I've seen KOA signs everywhere. My goodness, you are all over the place. I can imagine with an organization that spans so much physical territory, and when we say like, oh, you're a multinational corporation. Well, no, you have nationwide coverage in so many places. It's got to be a big challenge. How did you decide to go to KOA? What was the path that led you there in your career?
That's a really great question. And honestly, I didn't even know that they were based out of the hometown that I'm living in Billings, Montana. So when I applied, I was just looking for another job and go, okay, let's work at KOA. And I was like, what? They have a quality analyst at a campground? What? No, it's the corporate building, that was started 62 years ago in Billings, Montana. The first KOA ever was on the banks of the Yellowstone River. And then Dave Drum went out and started franchise model. So as you said, it's over the whole United States and now Canada as well. So over 520 campgrounds that we have. So yes, and little tidbit of information about KOA is you recognize, do you remember the color of the sign?
Yeah, it's this like orange, yellow thing. Yeah.
Yellow. It is yellow. You're absolutely right. And the KOA in the middle is red. But yellow is the very first color that your eye picks up. So when you're driving down the road, I'm sure it's probably instantaneous. I'm not a doctor, right? But there are studies that show that yellow is the very first color your eye will pick up.
So now I'm super
So-
happy because my trailer will have green interior with yellow accent colors, so I will always find it. Yay.
That's amazing. And you went to KOA in your hometown as a business analyst. How did you get into the business analyst field? Like what drew you to it? What sort of training did you go through? Tell us a little bit about your background behind that.
Yeah, I started in computer science. So I come from a tech world. I wanted to be in the beginning of coding and tech. I won't date myself, but it was after mainframe computers. Let's say that. At least I'm after the mainframe computers. But computer science, and then I actually started in KOA as a quality analyst. And I found out that our CIO heard the questions that I was asking stakeholder groups and saying, you need to ask those ahead of development, which is business analysis, which I'd never heard about at JM. So I didn't even know it existed. So I got the job and then went through the training. So then signed on to IABA and got certifications for business analysis. And then it just went up to business architecture from there.
So what we're going to do today is obviously we're talking about your exciting journey as a BA. But before we get started to this, Breanne, can you talk a little bit about yourself? What do you do? What are your hobbies, interests, bucket list item? All that stuff, so that our audience get to know you a little bit better as a person before we go into the boring business part of the show.
The boring. I was a human being until I had, with my own interests, until I had children. And then I'm a mom. So that's where I've been. But now they are, my oldest one just graduated high school. So I'm kind of circling around to, that's why I'm diving in more to business architecture and learning my professional journey, because I don't have to shuttle them around as much anymore. So I am a dog mom as well. I know, Roland, you were talking about your dogs. I have 3 little toy Australian Shepherds. My bucket list item is actually to run at least a half marathon, if not a full marathon, in every state in the United States. So I only got up to 19 before COVID hit. And then since then, kind of went down. My training went down a lot. I need to get back up there. But I got DC at least in there. So it's not a state, but at least I'm getting back up there.
Well, Breanne, what's your favorite marathon you've run so far? What's the most beautiful or moving experience you've had running?
Okay, well, that one's easy. It's Hawaii. So
Okay.
I've already done that one.
All right. That's a little bit of a cheat. That's a beautiful place.
That is a cheat.
What was it like? Like, what's the Hawaii Marathon like? Where do you run? What do you see while you're there?
It was hot. Let's put it that way. That one. Actually, in that one, I didn't even run. It was my slowest one because it was 8 weeks after knee surgery, but I paid for it for a year and had paid for the vacation with my children a year in advance. So I still did it. So I did have to walk most of that one. So I think I have to go back and do it again, really, to actually run it. The other really interesting one, if I can tell you, one is the Glacier Park in Montana. That one is 5 miles up a pass and then 8 miles down, which is great coming down. But at the very top, it was raining that day. The very top, I got hailed on.
Ooh.
So that was fun.
Yeah, it's a little bit of unusual intrusion into your running normal stuff. Well, I want to take us to our today's topic, because I think this is I'm glad we got a chance to know you, and this is fantastic. Like, hey, anyone out there, if you want to try and have a business architecture conference in Hawaii around the time that there's a marathon, you might be able to get some folks flying out for other reasons. But let's talk about KOA and or at least your journey into business architecture with KOA. You mentioned that this is a less well-trod-on discipline for them, less well-traveled path. So tell me, before there was light at KOA of business architecture, what did it look like, and were you there, or do you know the reasons why they started to head down the path of creating a business architecture practice?
You're absolutely correct. There was no light in this area at all. And why? So I think Roland touched on it earlier. I started in business analysis, And then when I was getting certified, I went over to AAC, Agile Analysis Certification, which you learn about the roles of business analysis. So strategy, initiative, and delivery. Strategic analysis, as a BA, after I learned that was a thing, that the strategic level really needs to be analyzed, what they're doing and how, and align it to their objectives, that I went and learned more about business architecture just on my own. And there was a reason, because I felt pain. Our department, our IT department, felt pain from the shifting priorities. When you constantly have to pivot with the work you're doing, it's a lot less, it's very inefficient, right? So it was from that pain that I went up to figure it out, business architecture, proposed that to our CEO. I didn't even know that they wanted it. I guess I'm a good salesperson. I never thought I was. But they bought it and said, okay, yeah, we need this here to align our North Stars. We have a lot of work to do here. And then they added it. I did survey our CEO later and said, why? Why did you add business architecture in? Because I knew for my pain point, right, from the bottom up kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you see the need? And she basically said she wanted to build a foundation holistically over the whole organization to improve our structure and collaboration. So she did buy off from the strategic level as well. So there were two levels it came from.
So the interesting question is, obviously you got the mandate now, right? And I'm pretty sure you had your own shock moment, after you got your mandate. What did you do then? Is it? I can imagine when you see a large organization, right, that there's so many different things, and of course there's some areas of the organization that you feel familiar with. They say, "Oh, I can help Jim Bob with this problem there," but you basically took a step backwards or out of this realm, and now you're the person who should look at the whole organization, right? So how was that? What were your first steps that you did after you recovered from your shock?
After the recovery, okay, so you did identify the shock. That's good. It was very frustrating. It was very on uneasy soil, if you will say, because everything, I went out and I started learning, right? Going to conferences, webinars, reading the BizBot guide from the Business Architecture Guild. So studying up. But the one thing that I wasn't learning or understanding is, how do you start to implement business architecture? Where do you start? And there is no prescription. Even today, I've talked to actually business architecture pioneers in the field, and it's known there is no prescription to starting business architecture.
Well, there's a podcast that I could recommend you to listen to. They're at 71 episodes by now, so maybe I give you the URL after the show.
But there is no prescription. And I think part of why there might be no prescription is because every patient's symptoms look a little different.
You're absolutely correct.
Business architecture as a discipline expands beyond every border of every company. And by targeting the parts that are hurting the most, you can earn a little bit of trust. I mean, just like you have to trust your doctor, you need to trust your business architecture group. And I love that you saw that there wasn't an easy in. So my question then is, so if no one's telling you what to do, you don't have a doctor prescribing exactly how you're going to tackle this problem, where did you decide to start?
You are absolutely right. I call them pain points. For any organization, every major pain points are different. So I started there from what I knew, right? So I came from IT. I know why I wanted business architecture at the organization from the IT department. The shifting priorities was a huge one for me, and talking to the rest of the departments, not just IT, that was a frustration and pain point for them as well. So maybe it wasn't building our capability models and value streams, everything that you're supposed to be building within the business architecture. Do that as you go. But it was getting into that initiative management for me to start showing the value. At the same time, though, Jam, something really important to do when you're setting this up is, one, learn what you're supposed to be doing too, but creating that awareness especially if it's new in an organization, a business architecture across the whole is not well understood in organizations at the strategic level, what value it could provide. So at the same time of me going, okay, I want to change this initiative management to pain point for our organization, I have to start communicating with leadership and the rest of the teams what business architecture can provide, the value. When do you need to insert business architecture? Because nobody knew. It was brand new. There was no light, right?
But that's very abstract. How did you make it tangible? You can say, hey, we're going to do these practices or rituals or whatever, right? We're going to do this and this and this. And the value will be, we will be better, more beautiful, faster, whatever it is. But I'm pretty sure nobody believes you, right? I wouldn't believe you if you would pitch it that way. So how do you make sure that you could articulate that value in a way that it's believable?
I incorporated that value anytime I would be stating the awareness for business architecture, leading the value, showing the value that it has provided, or in conversations with people what I can provide is where I would do it. For example, I started tracking my value very early as far as business architecture. What value was it providing to my customers, the business? So we were running some initiatives because I was still kind of pulling business analysis duties, but it was at the strategic level. So we were kicking off like an escalation procedure. We were doing accounting system requirements of getting a new system, which crosses the whole organization, really. So these were points where I was doing a lot of analysis, strategic business analysis, but it was still providing value to the organization and starting those conversations. So meeting them where they were at in their conversations is really how you start getting, it's not easy. Okay, Roland, you can't just beat down someone's door and say, I did this at this point in time and it provided this value and that kicked it all off. It's planting little seeds. It is abstract if you think about it. You have to plant the seeds and then you can see them flourish as you come along. It's not easy.
Yeah, it is. And people will say, so what? That's what do I care what you did? You know what I mean? Because they're busy with their own life, with their own tasks. Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my question here is, you said you trained, so you went and got education. Did you use external partners or sources for giving you sort of advisory services? Did you have reference information that you were using from your education that you used as a baseline, or did you have to invent a lot of these things yourself?
The what I should be doing in business architecture, I learned from multiple cohorts that I got in on and learning from pioneers in the business. So there have many training modules out there. So using that, however, as far as templates of what to present to my business or how to, no, I had to come up with that on my own.
Wow. Because, I mean, I'm assuming you don't have a lot of case studies in the marketplace about campground management for business architecture for campground management. There aren't a lot of companies like KOA. And how many of them have gone through a major business architecture uplift? So
exactly.
How do you tailor what you know or what you've learned to the specifics of your business? So, tell me about some of the concerns you took into mind, how you found the different departments and their particular concerns, and integrated it into a model that you could, transmit and use repeatedly as you develop this practice.
Yeah, the guild does have the reference models, right? So industry-specific reference models. But as you said, hospitality, whether it be hotels or outdoor hospitality, such as we are, there isn't any, because there's not the people knocking down the doors to actually say, let's build this reference model together. So, but a lot of stuff that businesses do, HR management, finance management, those are pretty much the same across businesses. And then you tweak it for your business. But a lot of the value streams that you provide to your customers, outdoor hospitality is completely different in a lot of ways from anything else that they had the reference models for. So how did I go about doing that? One of the challenges, I will start with a challenge or an opportunity, I guess. People are very busy in the business. They're running at 100% capacity, as you can imagine. So getting time with the people at the strategic level to sit down and go, help me build our value streams. Help me build my capability map, or not even using that terminology, of course. I didn't walk in going, here's business architecture, let's do that. I just go, let's talk about what the business does, right? What value do we provide and who to, internal, external, or just sitting in on meetings and listening. That's what I did because people did not have time to meet with me. It's still a challenge to this day. So what I did was I built our business architecture baseline. So capabilities, value streams, information concepts, organizational business units. I built those a mile wide and inch deep. So very not in depth, right? So
Yeah.
I've worked at this business for almost 10 years. So I don't know everything because I came from IT, but you have conversations with people. You know what the business does. You may not know how they cross map yet, how one interacts with the other. That will come in time as we go into the depth. But that's where I started, was that let's just map out what I know of the business. And here's the important thing. Then when you get into a room with each department, as you start to validate, you're not starting with a whiteboard. People are more inclined to say, nope, that's wrong.
Yeah, I'm curious. How was that received? Was it like, oh, finally somebody shows up and enlightens me how everything's wired up, or was it more like, who is that lady? Why is she in here? This has nothing to do with what I'm doing. So, or something in between. What was the reception that you got coming up with that approach?
Yeah, great example is I had both. I had the people who understood at least what I was trying to do, and then going, I don't know what's in it for me. Well, that's how I led my conversations then, to them going, this is what I can help you with. And a lot of it is, process, helping them become more efficient. They know the word process, maybe it's value stream, but I'm speaking in their terminology. So Roland, they do understand where I'm coming at, where I can help them. But an example is, take HR. They are furthest from tech, or maybe even care about processes at our organization anyway. They just have to do what they have to do. They open the door first. Exactly. So in technology, I had that open door. So I won't say that one wasn't open. So I had that open door. But out of all the other departments in our organization, HR was at least willing to go, I don't understand what you're doing, but I understand the concept and the value you're going to provide. So you tell me what information you want and need, and I will give you that.
Yeah, it's something that I love to say about introducing business architecture to people who don't know it or who haven't been involved in the craft. I want to create something that they can look at, tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm crazy. The only thing I don't want you to do is tell me nothing.
Absolutely.
Silence is the biggest, the most dangerous thing that these teams can do. And it sounds like you went on, I would maybe hazard a guess to say, a little bit of a fishing expedition, luring out with a little bit of bait. Here is what your business architecture, here's a first point. And they go, oh, wait, that looks a little bit like me, but if I can correct you, great. Engagement. And having the connection to IT, having that connection to HR, with them opening, that must have been give you a lot of encouragement that you can grow it. So here's the next question to you. How do you build on a seed? Because you say you want to plant it. The first sprout is just starting to emerge. How do we make sure that doesn't get nibbled up by some, passing by low-hanging rodent who wants to deliciously eat one nut before it becomes a tree?
You have to continually nurture it. I mean, I know that sounds like, well, duh, right? But it's hard to do. It's hard to keep your ear to the ground and watch I know you use plant, but in Montana, we have a lot of sheep, right? Watch your flock and see where you need to go nurture, or a campfire, since we're a camping business. Where are the cold spots and hot spots in your campfire that you need to continually build up. They go up and down, so you have to be able to pivot that and help them. And again, I would say, then how do you continue to flourish it? Is pain points.
Ooh.
It's still pain points, because just because you help them with one pain point to plant that seed, they've grown a little bit more, but now they have another pain point. Okay, come in, meet them where they're at, and help them grow even more.
So do you have a long list of requirements / pain points, somebody else's pain points or somebody different else's requirements? Do you have a long list, or how did you build the trust that people just tell you that, and you can decide what is the most urgent problem that you want to tackle? Or was it so obvious that you didn't have to spend a second thought on that?
I believe I earned the trust. I was lucky enough to be as a business analyst, which is a role that you listen to people. You elicit information. And then you can document the requirements or whatever and kind of do solutioning and all of that. But you just build that trust. So I continued on that skill set. That's a skill set that any business analyst or business architect have to have. You have to have that emotional EQ to be able to listen to people, to hear their pain points. No, Roland, I don't have a huge list. I will. Talk to me now, because now I have a business architecture tool and I'm actually documenting and mapping the capabilities and value streams, but rolling it back 6 months. No, I didn't have that. But what I would do is I would listen to the pain points from HR, from IT. That is connecting or collecting those dots. But then instead of going, I'm going to solve your pain point and your pain point, what I did was pull them together and analyze them to say, what solution maybe could we do to solve numerous pain points? So it could be a framework, it could be a process, it could be an initiative, right? So it's not just fixing one off, it's taking that time to say, I listened to you, here's a viable solution, what do you think? And that builds trust.
This is a great way of connecting with people, because ultimately it seems like business architecture is not just about like the abstract of the business. It's about the human beings that occupy the positions, the jobs that they're expected to do, and the solutions that they use to get those jobs done. You're helping serve a variety of people's needs at different levels of the organization. That is both commendable, but it's also a give and take, right? They give you information, they give you trust, they expect things from you, you provide them solutions, and you help to ease their pain points and grow the practice you're creating. And I want to turn that around to our audience, because thinking about a time where maybe you started with business architecture, what was your first foray in the organization you were in? Was it already a full-fledged practice, or did you have to help create it? And if you did have to create it, or at least you had to grow it, what challenges did you come across? How did you establish trust? And how did you overcome organizational barriers to business architecture getting planted as a seed in the ground? We'll leave you for a moment and take our first break of the show to think about these questions, and we'll come back with our second section, the how.
And welcome back. Breanne, this is really, really interesting to see that little plant starting to grow and basically be the person who planted the seed in there. But obviously now that we're at a point where you see the first whatever sprouts coming out of the soil, well, maybe the question is, how did you do that? Especially as I heard you have unlimited resources at your disposal in implementing this. Yes.
My unlimited sources of one, that is, yes, exponential. So yeah, and that is a tough pill to swallow. When you are a team of one, it's not only hard to get awareness started and that seed planted, it is hard to continue to think, okay, I know we need to change this piece, fix this pain point, but how? You don't have a team to bounce those ideas off of, right? So I did enlist a lot with my network on, LinkedIn, some of the other people that I've come in contact with, cohorts that I was involved with. So they really helped me, even though I was a team of one at KOA. At least I had people to go, is this crazy? Do you really think this will work? Or before I take this in front of our executive team, let me just run it by you first. So I was really lucky to have people that kind of helped steer the boat for me. I was really helpful.
And that's business knowledge rather than people who are necessarily methodology experts. This is just people who know your business, people who are smart problem solvers, who are helping to set your expectations and provide context, right? Like you're not getting help from 30-year veterans of business architecture.
Actually, it was the opposite.
Oh, really?
So I did not know the content of the business specifically, because I can fill that up with conversations with the people that I work with when I get them in the room. But the methodology, the how we're going to do this, how we're going to implement it, how to bring in architecture overall, those are the people that I really spoke with, and strategists, right, at this level, just to think up, hey, have you tried this? Have you had this conversation with everybody, multiple people? So it was actually the opposite. It was nobody, again, I haven't had conversations with anybody else from the outdoor hospitality industry or hospitality industry.
Yeah, and I think that's another validation of what we spoke about 2 episodes ago when we were speaking with Heather about building community. Because could you imagine doing this 15, 20 years ago? You're sitting on your little island and have nobody to reach out and maybe writing letters to an industry magazine and hopefully somebody picks it up from the big pile of paper that they receive, So I think it's much easier now, but still it's the work that needs to be done. Right. So, Breanne, can you talk a little bit about how you nurtured then going on that little, don't want to say flame because we're in the plant analogy.
We're in the we're not going to burn down the plant.
No fires.
You're working at a campground, there's some embers flying around. So come on.
We'll put the glass over the rose, we'll protect it.
No, but let's grow into value streams, into processes, into scenarios. Like how are you drilling through this business architecture or in levels of evolution? Because remember, you started a mile wide and an inch deep. How are you starting to increase the depth that you can safely dive into it?
Yeah, 2 deliverables, action items that I did to kick it off across the board was the glossary of terms for the organization. Did not have one of those before. So when you talk about getting somebody in a room and talk about, okay, we're going to talk about customer management, what do you think a customer is? What does this other person think a customer is? And from my point of view in our camping industry, when we say customer, I don't even have that in our glossary of terms because I split out customer. We're a franchise model. Well, and we have a guest, but we're also a franchise model. So one of our customers is a franchisee. So that's very important to know that we're talking the same language. Okay. And this is business architecture. It's our information concepts, which lead into our capabilities. But I started with a glossary of terms, said, let's figure out our terms. What is the definition? And what I did is I put a little asterisk next to the terms that were linked to my capabilities, meaning don't change this unless we actually go into the architecture and know that there's a reason for it. So started there, again, meeting them where they're at in their terminology. But it mapped to the architecture. It was helping me. I had a hidden agenda, right? Also, a business rule book. I started that as well, which that is coming from the business analysis field, of course. But this is nurturing the business to say, you have a voice. You are enabled by IT, but the business runs these rules and requirements. Because previously they were looking at IT to say, I don't know, how does this work? No. Business, you own this. And so that again was kind of nurturing that business architecture. No, the rule book is not in the knowledge base for business architecture, but what it's doing is it's teaching the business that your knowledge is key and we have to document your knowledge.
Yeah, I love that a lot. That makes the business feel good, right? It recognizes what the value is they provide and gives them a lasting piece of collateral that they can attribute to their business knowledge. So now we've got the business bot, and we've sort of defined the playing field with the glossary of terms, and we have the rule book. So how do we turn that into action? So you're taking this from sort of a catalog to projects and initiatives, or something like that, like where you're looking to make transformation happen to actually solve the problems you've now highlighted.
Yes. One of the first ones that I used that terminology and rule book in was again, the awareness started in the first 6 months building. I was invited to a week-long meeting for onboarding new owners or campgrounds, if you will. That department, a couple departments wanted to get together and review their overall process. Okay. So I just sat in the back of the room there, and it didn't take long all you do is start asking questions. You don't say, this is wrong. No, you're not thinking about that. You can't come off as telling them what to do, right? So you ask questions, leading questions to get them to think. And that's all I had to do was pull in, okay, we had this terminology. If they did use customer, or I'm just using customer as an example, they used a term that was not well defined, then I would gently go, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you mean by that? So let's continually build this out. But then also the way that I was able to pull that up into the architecture was pull them up into a value stream. I knew what the value stream was, but they were talking about pain points and what they were working on. So leading questions. Okay, well, you have pain points coming into what you do. So why don't we talk to acquisitions and get them in the room and say, hey, maybe they can provide us this information. And they're, oh, we can do that. So this again is pulling the business architecture of being over the whole ecosystem instead of siloed into, I'm doing this and I have to deal with my pain points coming in and going out of my process. No, you don't. I'm here to say, let's go over the whole value stream so we're actually providing that value. So it started to pull it up and use it in architecture overall.
Yeah, I hate to have that analogy, but it's like being the spider in the web. You know, you're in the midst of everything, and you get to know everyone, and then it's not, oh yeah, that's somebody from outside our department that I've never met. You know, you're the conduit to that person, right? And in my experience, the majority of the people I work with, 99.x%, are people who want to help, right? Who want to go and be part in doing something good that brings value to what you do, right? As an organization, even though that might not be your field that you're in. So I think that's definitely an added value of having a BA group in an organization. But what I think about is, obviously, you captured all those needs, all those pain points. You know, you started connecting people. You started building up your repository in the background. You know, your dictionary, your capability maps, and all that other stuff. But obviously, the value comes when the rubber hits the road, right? So when you actually do initiatives and projects and all that stuff. How did you get started with that? So basically getting off or getting out of your role of sitting in the back and listening and talking to people to actually become more active, driving things, or however you want to describe this. How did that shift happen?
What I say about business architecture is that we enable other people to make the change, to do better, to be more efficient, to make better decisions, informed decisions. So where I did not take action as far as, okay, here's your new process and lay all this stuff out for them, it was more thought process at this point. Okay, it was still, we need to think differently. And as that example is, you mean I could talk to acquisitions? How sad is that? That as a department, you don't think that you can go knock on somebody's door, or that it would be, their feeling also is that it would be confrontational. And then I sat there and go, I could be in the room. I could be a mediator. But then when you got them in the room, so that is an action point. Then I get people in the room to talk it out. They came to the decisions on their own. So again, I wasn't doing it, but I was enabling the space to make these more informed decisions, to improve their processes, and just bringing the information out that they need in which to do so. So have your people and information to work together, to collaborate.
How does this align with the conventional structures of project management offices? So do you work with PMOs? Do you work with project managers? Do you work with change management or change agents in the organization? Like, how do they feed you and how do you feed them?
Yes, great question. And this is one I can spend hours talking on. So hone me in if you need to a little bit. Project management overall, how we talk together. No, we do not have PMO, EPMO here at KOA right now. Now, what I mean by that is we have departments running projects. So we have capital planning department, right? They're running projects, they're building campgrounds, they're doing their thing in their way. Okay, we have IT running their projects. So it's not called a PMO. We don't have specific project managers. They have product owners and BAs and testers and so they're running projects as well. My pain point and how business architecture needed to help the whole organization is we don't have any strategic insight into all of the projects that are running across the whole organization. Remember that pivoting that I was talking about in the beginning? That's because you go from annual planning or quarterly planning, annual at this point right now for us, say, these are our objectives, this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, push that to department leads, go for a year. Okay, but we're not tracking the metrics on it. We have no visual. We have nothing to inform that strategic team of throughout the year, what are the departments doing? Also, there was no capacity planning because, again, remember I said IT enables a lot of the other business. So IT had their marching orders, what they're working on. But then this marketing or capital plan or whatever other department needs, oh, now we need IT. Well, now we're overstressed. We don't have capacity to do that. And then there's conflict. And then we're not reaching value. And then there's pivots. And so that was a need over the whole strategic organization that I saw that we need to implement.
So how do you encapsulate that in some sort of methodology to tackle this? Because it seems like a lot of chaos, organizational chaos. Do you use like a planning method or a tool that helps you get control of it? And something you've maybe learned along the way? I know there's lots of different ways to address this kind of challenge. And what does that offer you if you do?
Where I started from business architecture to kind of give it a backbone to run from is I presented our CIO and CEO with the Deliver Initiative value stream.
Okay.
That is not just for the hospitality industry, right? That's from a reference model in the guild. Mm-hmm. I kind of pivoted, changed some wording and stuff to have it work for our business. But it's a value stream, and it is best practices on the stages you should go through in order to deliver value at the end, an initiative, right? So I was able to put that in front of them to kind of explain, okay, these are the people, because the stakeholders in each of the stages of the value stream for our organization, that's something that I put in there and talked to them about. But then the big thing there was for us, you said chaos, because I was able to say, we're skipping steps. We are figuring out, discovering the initiative, and then going to execute. Well, guess what? We're not creating the initiative plan. We're not resourcing. We're not doing the architectural steps in between there to make sure we're doing the right thing in the right time for the whole business with visibility. And I was able to show, okay, we need to shift these people left to take out the chaos, because we have solution architects, okay, the NIT and other, we have now business architecture. We have the subject matter experts here. We have to shift those people left into that execute or create the initiative step while you're creating that charter and business case up here before we even resource, before we get approval to start and execute the initiative. Because before it was all done during execution. So then if you don't define your stakeholders, if you miss a group, whole bunch of, you could imagine there's a whole bunch, that is the chaos, right? But that really opened eyes right there, simply showing them the value stream for Deliver Initiative and what steps we need to be going through.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is this is the first steps of two things. One is strategic alignment. This is what we do and this is how it aligned to a bigger picture. But it's also obviously the first step to build a portfolio. But then when I think about a project portfolio, even though you're a team of one, I'm pretty sure you have your own BA roadmap that you plan. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that weaves into it? Because I can imagine being a team of one, you're super busy, right, in supporting other groups within the firm, right? But if you don't take the step back and think about, oh, wait a sec, how do I improve? How does my team improve? How do I grow my team? Well, it never gets done because you're stuck in the daily busy. Have you seen that problem as well? And if so, how did you tackle that?
Yes, I'm laughing because that would be a case of do as I say, not as I do, right? If I'm asking the business to take a step back and improve how they are working instead of just do. But I myself in the business architecture practice didn't do that. That would kind of be bad for myself to do that.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, though. I did have a business architecture roadmap out there, and there's 3 segments in that for the business architecture application. So what am I helping people do, departments do, maybe some of the initiatives that I'm helping them run, make sure we're going through the right steps right now because we don't have that, what I'm calling VMO, and I don't know if you guys even want to touch on that, but I'm implementing it. Since I don't have a department to do that right now, I'm making sure that we're running hopefully the right things in the right way. So I'm helping the business actually apply business architecture where we can. But then business architecture development in here, this is the knowledge base. As I said, inch deep and mile wide, it's not built overnight. So then as I'm applying the business architecture, then I can start building the depth in those areas for the knowledge base. So I start helping the accounting system. Okay, now let's dig down into finance management and those value streams. So each time I'm applying business architecture, it helps me with the development of the business architecture base. But then the third one is maturing the business architecture practice, making sure that we're keeping track of, okay, we're at a level, and the Guild has a maturity model, so you can actually rate your organization on where you're at. And not everybody has to be at a level 5, right? That, it's okay. It's usually 3. But anyway, I rated us every year. So right when we started, of course, we're at a 0 or a 1. But pinpointing where in that model I can mature. I have the focus to go in and say, I can change this piece, because I can't change it all. It takes the business, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say. It's not just me maturing the practice.
No.
It's how is the business architecture and IT architecture talking together? How are we aligned, right? So that takes them too, right? But focusing on that to mature overall. So those 3 places, Roland, is what I have on my roadmap. And then I build out my quarterly plans based on that.
Yeah, and you're thinking about building out your quarterly plans. I know, for those who behind the scenes you can't see, we're actually taking a look at some of the fantastic notes that were written just thinking about planning this show out. You've organized this into a timeline on at least the screen that I can see, and we're going to have a couple of notes for you at What's Your Baseline after the show for this. But I wanted to talk about the sort of denouement of this like introduction process. So talk to me a little bit about how you saw this moving from a new idea to a sustained practice, some of the value you were able to show to maybe encourage it to become more of a sustainable practice within the organization, and the lessons learned that you're taking forward to each new wave of development that you're helping to support, or to the sustained growth of the organization and the business architecture practice in that organization.
The challenge I was getting through, I put a lot of deliverables in front of people, introduce the business case. We weren't even using a business case, for example. So it wasn't aligned. Introduced OKRs. So they were using quarterly rocks, but there wasn't that defined alignment and metrics associated with them. So all these little pieces, very important to start implementing in a business. But what I found is it was like throwing spaghetti on a wall, right? Seeing what sticks. And maybe only half of those were sticking. 2 people maybe were using the business case. But to get true alignment and tracking our OKRs, we needed all of them too. So what I found that I had to do to actually incorporate all of this was create a framework for them to see from strategy to execution, where do these things fit and why are you doing it? Because I knew we needed these little things, and I only knew what I knew at the time. So I can't say that it was bad for me to bring up, we need to implement a business case. What needs to be in there? I had to go and pull this out and define and, create these strategic templates instead of every department doing their own, or the OKRs. Every piece is needed. But what I found was that people adopting it and putting it in practice was not happening because they didn't understand why. Where in the process do I do a business case, for example, right? So I just got done throwing together a strategy to execution framework for our organization. And it's like a concept map, very simple. It's boxes with relational arrows, from strategic vision to annual planning to quarterly planning. And then I had in statuses of each of them saying, we have this, it's good. We need to work on this a little bit, improve this, or we need to add this. But then they were able to see in the whole picture why. So when we said, okay, here's this framework, we're updating the annual planning documents. You're asked more questions now on alignment. What goal, strategic objective does this align to?
Oh.
You're asked that because 3 steps later, when we get into our architecting changes, which goes through the deliver initiative value stream, we need to know that there. We need to know the alignment. So it really helped them. Okay, why are we doing business cases? Oh, well, this comes in from annual planning and our intake triage. So we can actually prioritize when we get to my VMO. We can compare apples to apples on all these business cases. Do they align? And so it's not, oh, someone's hair is on fire more than the other, so we're going to pick that project, right?
Yeah, like aligning and showing the impact of things. That's awesome.
Then I'm safe, there's no hair to be on fire. So that's all good. But I want to be cautious of the time, but also want to give you a little outlook because I know, and I'm pretty sure you talk about that in a minute, but I know you're implementing a tool for business architecture. And the way how I typically say is, well, you need to define the process, which is basically what you just described, right? Doing this. And then you will have an added complexity like, ooh, why do you come up with that tool, and whatnot? Because in my experience, the better run projects that I worked on was when the client was actually using the tool because they got involved in it, versus me or us doing the work for them, right? Which might not even an issue for you because you have so many fires to patch in between that you don't have the time for this, but that will come. But speaking of that, very interesting conversation, and thanks for sharing all those experiences. But the one question that I have is, what's next? What is upcoming in 2024, the second half of 2024 and 25 for you and the BA group at KOA?
The BA group of one.
Well, maybe it's more by whatever. Put a timeline in place,
Oh, absolutely. Right now, it's because and when I say it's fresh, I just got approval to create the roadmap for change for the strategy to execution, which has a lot of new additions I have to add here, which could mean adding departments, strategic departments. I mean, this is huge. So where you have to start is culture. It's an underlying that touches everything that we're working on. After I presented this whole framework, our COO actually looked at me and said, "This will be a complete cultural shift for our organization."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." And they could see that it was needed, but they could see how hard it's going to be to re-steer this huge ship, right, in a different direction. So every piece that I implement, it has to have that change management around it. It has to take that culture piece with it. Otherwise, that culture is going to eat that flower, right? It's going to kill it.
Oh yeah, I like that. I love that as a cultural shift. I always say that fool with a tool is still a fool. Like you have to change hearts and minds rather than simply putting a framework in place and hoping people will do what they're told or that they'll believe in it, they'll live it. I also posted something on LinkedIn a couple of days ago that business architecture is a lifestyle, not just a life cycle, not just a bunch of templates. It is a lifestyle, and organizations need to adopt that. Otherwise, they're doomed to eventually fall back on bad habits. Because it is way easier to simply explain away your problems, to simply do a project that's a pet that you like, that you heard from a guy that was working with this one company that one time you should do it like that, rather than following the evidence and following the structure, building a sustainable organization that actually achieves lasting transformational change. And I wanted to put this back to our audience here, because think about how you're achieving these goals. Do you use these kinds of tools, a strategy to execution framework? What challenges do you have getting buy-in and visibility for that? We've heard a lot about visibility from Breanne. And what opportunities does implementing that offer to your organization? And for you, where have you seen that value turn into a sustained practice? Or if you're still a practice of one, how could you grow that by showing value of a sustained and ever-growing practice with business architecture in your organization? We'll leave you for a moment and come back with our final thoughts and conclusions for the episode.
I won't come, something coming over. I won't come like something coming over me. I won't come like something coming over me. I won't come like something coming over me. Something coming over me. Give me never, 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 'cause oh.
And welcome back. You've missed, obviously, all the fun that we had in the break in between. But coming back to a more serious question, Breanne, and I forgot, I can't summarize all the good stuff that we spoke about. So people read it in the show notes. I try to make sense out of it. But the most important question, and first of all, thank you for being on the show and sharing your experience with us. If I wouldn't know you, right, the first question that I would have is, well, how do I get in contact with that Breanne person? Because I want to talk more. I want to learn more about her experience because I'm in the same position with a year behind her. So how can people reach out to you? Where can you be found?
Sure. The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So Breanne Casteel, I don't think there's very many of them, or put in Billings, Montana after it. You could find there's only one. So quickly, easily found on LinkedIn, but messaging there is probably the fastest way.
And that's a quick pitch for our LinkedIn, because not only is Breanne on LinkedIn, but you can find more about What's Your Baseline on LinkedIn. Many of you are probably listening to this show through a link you found on LinkedIn, but maybe on Spotify or on whatsyourbaseline.com. Go and visit our various socials and leave us feedback. We love hearing from our audience, and that is a huge thank you to our audience for sticking with us for this long, to Breanne for a fantastic conversation about getting started with business architecture, to Roland for being the wonderful heel of the conversation. And we will see you in more of these things we do together. If you'd like to find out more about this show, go to whatsyourbaseline.com. This show and its show notes specifically, you can go to whatsyourbaseline.com/episode 71. But until next time, friends, I've been J.M. Erlinson.
I am Breanne Casteel.
And my name is still Roland Volt.
And we will see you in the next one.